A man is scammed by a friend and left with 900 million won in debt. Broke and hopeless, he stands on a bridge ready to end his life, but suddenly 4 million won is deposited into his account and a limo arrives. He's taken to a theater where he's offered a strange game. He will be paid just for spending time in it, and food and housing will be provided. If one person dies, the whole game ends. Tempted by the chance to escape his debt, he chooses card number 3 and steps into a building with 8 mysterious floors and a giant 24-hour timer. His room on the 3rd floor is plain, with a scoreboard, intercom, cameras, a fake window screen, a uniform, and a rule book. The extra rules say he must lock away his belongings and wear the uniform. He can order items through the intercom, but he can't take them outside his room, and they cost 100 times more than normal, with the price deducted from his winnings. Items in the shared ground floor square can be used by everyone. From midnight to 8 a.m., they must remain in their rooms and cannot block cameras. Breaking rules cuts half of their prize money. At midnight, the game starts. He changes quickly and sees he earns 30,000 won just for 1 minute. After 1 hour, he calculates that staying for 24 hours means 43 million won, enough to pay his debt in a week. But the catch soon appears. The room is freezing and he needs to pee. A blanket costs 1 million, so he settles for newspapers, a cardboard box, and an empty bottle. By morning, he has over 14 million. When he goes outside, he meets 7 other participants. The timer has now jumped to 35 hours. They start to know each other but decide to address themselves based on their floor number. The others include 1F, who limps but rejects help, 2F, who is strong but cold and rude, 4F, who is scared and cautious, 5F, who is friendly and mediates, 6F, who is cocky and thuggish, 7F, who is logical and clever, and 8F, who is stylish and pampered but selfish. They discover that everything in the square is fake, and everyone wants to use the toilet but realizes there isn't one, either inside their rooms or outside. They plan to buy one using the square intercom, but opinions are divided, as some are afraid it will cost more than buying it inside the room. 7F suggests voting, but 6F simply buys cigarettes to test it, while 4F panics and checks inside her room, only to find that her money has stayed the same. The timer drops by 2 minutes, and 7F explains they are buying items with their time. 7F quickly figures out 1 minute is worth 2,500 won, but they realize if they spend all their time, the game will end without earning more money, so they need to spend it wisely. They also wonder why such an expensive show would exist if players could finish in a day, meaning there must be more hidden rules forcing them to stay longer. After arguments, they agree to buy buckets, toilet rolls, sanitary pads, garbage bags, and cigarettes. Food becomes the next problem, but 8F reveals she received 12 meal kits and 12 water bottles. But she selfishly tastes all the food by herself and finishes all the water to shower, shocking everyone. 3F confronts her about being selfish and that she should share with everyone there, and 5F tries to mediate. At first, she hesitates to share, but then points out she didn't realize others got none and wants to share with everyone, saying she eats little. Still, food can't be taken out of rooms. 7F comes up with a plan. Use the chutes to pass food down the levels. But first, they want to check 8F's room to see whether she is telling the truth, so they decide to go together. But 1F struggles to climb up, foreshadowing problems later. Inside 8F's room, they are shocked to see it is luxurious, with a huge window, bathtub, dining table, and mirror. When a minute passes, they see she earns 340,000 won per minute, while 1F only earns 10,000. They realize the prize money decreases with each lower floor. The story shifts to 8F, a woman in a gown who bursts in full of energy. She dives into the fake pool, bleeds from her nose, then heads to her empty room. She smokes, strips completely before changing into the uniform, and burns her old clothes. Once the timer starts, she earns 340,000 a minute. She wastes no time splurging on silk nightgowns, beds, pillows, toilets, a mirror, a dining table, books, and even bathtubs. Her rewards include 12 sets of meal kits and 12 bottles of water, though she barely eats and instead uses the water for baths. She spends recklessly but makes it all back while she sleeps. Meanwhile, the others reveal their earnings per minute. 7F gets 210,000, 6F gets 130,000, 5F gets 80,000, 4F gets 50,000, 3F gets 30,000, and 2F gets only 20,000. 7F quickly notices the prize money follows the Fibonacci sequence, which ties into the golden ratio, perfect for a visually pleasing show. As they explore each floor, the rooms keep shrinking. While the others feel uneasy, 8F happily bounces on a trampoline, irritating everyone. For food, 7F suggests a system. Everyone takes one meal, and the leftovers that land on the first floor can be shared together to build trust. But chaos breaks out when 8F wastes too much time buying her unnecessary clothes, leaving only 13 minutes on the clock. 2F confronts her, but she claims the timer can be extended through the stairs and demands that 2F apologize to her for being rude. As they argue, 1F rushes to the stairs, and the rest follow. They climb up and down until the timer runs out, only for it to reset to 24 hours. 8F knew this would happen after noticing the timer increase when they climbed the stairs for their earlier room tour. 3F reflects on 7F's theory. The game is designed to spark conflict, and survival depends on cooperation, so they need to keep this peace for as long as they can. Frustrated with his temporary toilet, he orders a porta potty. That night, everyone suffers with their basic supplies except 8F, who flaunts her fancy clothes, and 7F, who carefully documents their progress. From then on, they all run the stairs to extend the timer. The money grows, and they secure meals daily, but the 12 kits are not enough after working so hard climbing the stairs. So they decide to split into 2 teams, alternating stair runs, with leftovers going to whichever team runs that day, and whoever is off that day can't get to eat leftovers. 2F refuses to join the team with 8F, so 1F switches over. During one run, first floor collapses, and 6th floor angrily twists his arm for wasting their time with everyone watching. 2F substitute in for him, but exhaustion hits her the next day when it's her real turn. Later, 1F struggles again with his leg, and 3F steps in, feeling proud but drained by the end. Tension grows when 4F tells 1F to give his portion to 3F, who subbed in for him. 2F argues that since 8F barely eats, the team who stair runs that day already get more food. Though 3F is starving, everyone insists 1F should eat. Feeling that he's not contributing enough, 1F suggests collecting and keeping everyone's waste to make up for it, which everyone happily agrees to, and he fills his room with a terrible smell. 3F struggles to eat the leftovers because of the smell and joins 7F, who notices the timer is shrinking even though the stair runs stay the same. Then, without warning, the timer jumps up 10 minutes while no one is moving. The next day, everyone sees the timer not increasing like usual, so 8F says she feels bored doing it and stops running and just wants to rest. Then, 2F attacks her. 8F defends herself, saying lower floors should run harder since they refuse to spend money inside their own rooms, so they spend their time on the timer to buy their necessities. 3F realizes the truth. 1 hour on 2F's level only equals 1.2 million, while on her level it's 20.4 million. The higher floors earn much more, so it's a disadvantage for them if lower floors keep spending their time in the square. Even after 6 hours of running, the timer doesn't increase. Just minutes before midnight it suddenly jumps 20 minutes, then more, as if glitching. But the next day, it no longer resets at all, leaving only 30 minutes and sending everyone into chaos and panicked stair runs. Things take a dangerous turn when 4F suffers a seizure. 5F is a nurse and they need medicine, but 6F refuses, claiming it will reduce their time even more and insists that seizures won't kill her. When 2F tries to call the square intercom for medicine, he grabs her. A violent fight breaks out, everyone bleeding as they restrain him so they can order the medicine. Amid the chaos, 8F's laughter echoes. She reveals the timer has increased by 40 hours. At that moment, 7F remembers the cameras and understands none of these stair runs matter, and it reveals the timer increases by entertaining the audience. 3F experiments with mukbang and ASMR, but fails to increase the timer. He's interrupted by 7F, who seems to like him for stepping in as 1F's substitute. 3F also begins to trust him because 7F doesn't dump his waste into 1F's room and decides to keep it himself. They start planning ways to entertain the audience, and it becomes clear that it doesn't always have to be comedy. Violence could also count, which they try their best to avoid. When the group gathers to share ideas, 8F immediately suggests wrestling, but 7F changes the conversation back toward comedy, and they decide on a talent show. 7F kicks it off by playing the recorder with his nose, impressing everyone and pushing the timer to 24 hours. He also points out they should decide on when the game should end. 5F says 1F should decide since he earns the least, and 1F admits he needs 1 billion won, which means staying for 2.5 months. So by the end of that, second floor will get 2 billion won, third floor will get 3 billion won, fourth floor will get 5 billion won, fifth floor will get 8 billion won, sixth floor will get 13 billion won, seventh floor will get 21 billion won, and eighth floor will get 34 billion won, and everyone agrees to continue. The talent show starts, and one by one the participants perform, 5F singing and gets 10 hours, 6F smashing tiles but misses 1 and gets 15 hours, 2F also smashing the tiles but misses nothing and gets 17 hours, 4F yodeling off key and gets 1 hour 50 minutes only, 3F awkwardly dances and manages only 18 minutes, thinking 1F will do worse, but 1F shocks them all with mime and clown tricks, earning the most time with 30 hours. Finally, 8F claims her talent is in bed. When she asks 7F to go inside, he passes, so she chooses 6F, who is more than willing. Together, they put on a wild show and secure 69 hours. Altogether, they've earned 5 days. After the celebrations, 1F brings up the problem of waste piling up in his room. Since no one volunteers to take it, they decide to vote. 3F worries he'll be picked since his talent act scored the lowest, and 4F worries too as the second lowest. She convinces 1F, 3F, and 7F to aim for 8F since her room is the biggest. But things get tense when 6F tells 7F that he and 8F are voting against 3F, and 7F agrees. When voting day arrives, it's a tie between 3F and 8F. Then, 8F wins the voting, so she needs to collect all the waste starting now on. A flashback reveals that 7F betrayed 3F by voting for 3F and 2F votes for 8F, making her win. 8F happily celebrates by asking everyone to clap for her while the timer grows another day thanks to all the scheming. Then 3F asks 7F who the third vote against him was, since 5F chose not to vote but didn't know it was 7F. But 7F tells him to let it go since 8F is already chosen. Meanwhile, first floor thanks second floor for helping clear his room so he has space to sleep. Things suddenly spiral when 4F asks for her key to use her toilet inside her room, but 8F refuses to give it. 8F shocks everyone further by keeping all the food kits for herself, leaving the rest of the group with nothing but empty packages. Later, everyone is suffering from hunger for a few days. Ironically, the audience enjoys their misery, so the timer keeps extending. 4F's blood sugar drops and she becomes barely conscious, while 5F starts hallucinating. 2F wants to quit, but 1F begs to continue since he needs to collect 1 billion won first. Even 3F realizes he cannot face the loan sharks without 900 million won, and after long thought, he agrees to take their waste. 4F offers to share the burden since she didn't gain much time during the talent show, so 3F and 4F want to go apologize to 8F, but 7F insists on going instead. 7F knocks on 8F's door and says 3F and 4F will collect their waste instead of her and apologizes, then she agrees easily. She assumes they get much time for her keeping all the food, so all she wants is to buy clothes with that time. The others play along with her demands while 2F and 3F are annoyed that she uses their time to buy clothes, but 7F thinks it is still better than her coming up with crueler ideas, because since 8F earns the most and gets their food in her room, she actually holds so much power over them. First floor and second floor refuse to dump their waste on third floor and decide to keep it themselves, but the others overwhelm him. He doubts 4F is even taking her share of their waste collection, which makes him stressed even more. To keep herself entertained, 8F has everyone play a game of king. They draw numbers in secret, and whoever becomes king orders 2 people, who the king randomly chooses, to do a dare. The dares grow wilder until 8F demands that 2F and 3F kiss. 2F refuses, so 8F changes it to a fight between 2F and 6F. At first, 2F dominates since she is a trained fighter, but her injured hand from the talent show gives out. 6F takes advantage and beats her badly. 8F won't stop the fight unless 2F surrenders, but she can't even speak. The men pull 6F off her, and he celebrates because the violence has earned them days of time. To prevent more fights, 4F suggests a new rule. Anyone who refuses a dare will be punished by a taser. 3F is dared to touch 5F under her shirt. He is conflicted, but chooses the taser instead. The shock knocks him out and makes him wet himself. but it earns them even more hours than 6F's fight. By now, 30 days have passed. The king alternates mostly between 8F and 4F, while 6F almost always wins his dares. 3F and 2F are often the losers. Eventually, 1F realizes the game is rigged. He proves that 4F cheats during the coin toss. She can tell heads or tails by touching the bumpy surface and flipping it to match 6F's side. They share their suspicions with 7F, who already knows that 4F and 8F are cheating by making the king ball sticky with acetone. The next day, 1F pulls king and dares 7F and 8F to a coin toss. He forces 4F to catch the coin with the back of her hand so she cannot cheat. This time, 8F loses, and 3F sees it as karma. But before 7F can tase her, 6F kicks him down and tases him instead, announcing that it is time for a plot twist. 7F ends up in the room with 8F, 4F, and 6F. They pull him into their alliance because they need him to control the food chute going to the lower floors since he's on the 7th floor, so he's in the middle of the 8th and 6th floors. Together, they buy taser and bat, lock the square's intercom, and smash all the intercoms inside the lower floors. A new system begins inside the show, where the upper floors now hold power. All the cruel ideas come from 7F as he finds ways to keep control and extend the timer. 7F tells the lower floors that they need to make 24 hours per day. They can refuse it, but they won't get any food. 2F argues that if they die, the show will end. But 7F says it won't happen because they will still feed them, but in a tiny amount so they can still survive, indirectly making them suffer. They get 1 coin for every 3 hours they increase, 1 coin for one thing. So if they want food and drink, they will need 2 coins. The lower floors argue and confront them, but 6F beats and tasers them. Each day, lower floors are forced to play a random game with violent punishments. The first game is hide and seek. The lower floors need to choose between eye, tongue, hands, and legs without knowing what it is for. It's revealed that the body part they choose will be tied up and they need to avoid getting beaten by the hunter, who is 6F. 5F chooses legs, 3F chooses tongue, 1F chooses hands, and 2F chooses eyes. A fierce battle happens while the higher floors cruelly enjoy it, and 2F, who beats 6F when he finds her, ends up getting beaten badly by 6F, who gets too violent until 7F stops him. The winner is 3F, exempt from penalty, but he must carry out the penalty, which is being blindfolded and using a bat to randomly beat one lower floors player. He apologizes as he accidentally beats 1F. Based on the timer increase, 9 coins are handed out. The rules are that the lower floors must secretly request how many coins they want, but if the total is more than 9, no one gets anything. 3F, overthinking all the consequences, ends up only asking for 1 to be fair, but everyone else chooses 2, so he ends up just buying a drink to fill up his stomach, but it's obviously not enough. The next day, the next game is 20 questions. The lower floors can ask the higher floors for 20 clues, and whoever manages to get the correct answer before 20 clues is the winner and exempt from penalty. Later, 3F knows the answer, but purposely answers it wrong and hints to 2F, who is strong, to answer it correctly so she can take the bat, hoping she can attack 6F during the penalty. She manages to answer it correctly and carry out the penalty, but she misjudges her surroundings and ends up hitting 3F instead, knocking him out. Time passes, and the lower floors start to accept their fate to work for the higher floors. Until one day, when they don't get any coins, the lower floors rebel. When the higher floors ask them to return to their rooms, the lower floors refuse and stand still. 7F then offers whoever returns to their room first will get 1 coin, but the lower floors don't buy it. Then 6F offers 10 coins to whoever gives in first, and 5F, who has diabetes, immediately steps out first, making the lower floor's rebellious act pointless. That night, 3F loses hope and thinks about ending his life to escape this torture, but soon he notices 1F's note that he secretly put inside 3F's pocket. The note says, "Revolution." So he uses the chute to go to 1F's floor, and he listens when 1F comes up with a plan with 2F. The plan is 1F will signal 2F and 3F to slide down the chute to his room, then he will lure 6F in and fight him. But the next morning, 7F secretly warns 3F that the chute makes noise when sliding down. 3F panics, thinking 7F already knew their plan or it might be a trap, but realizes 7F is right. The chute makes noise when sliding down. One day, they notice the higher floors are distracted and bored while only 7F monitors the game. That is when 1F pretends to be sick and gives the signal. The next morning, 1F screams for help, so 3F and 2F use the chute to slide down. The others rush to check on 1F, and 6F realizes 2F and 3F are missing. He gives 8F the taser and storms into 1F's room, only to be ambushed. A chaotic fight breaks out among the waste bags, but 6F manages to escape. He grabs the taser and fires, but it doesn't work. It turns out 7F had already removed the batteries. Then, 7F signals the lower floors to beat 6F, and 2F finally knocks out 6F with her healed hand. Higher floors are tied up, and lower floors want revenge but cannot bring themselves to do anything violent. 3F goes to 7F, hoping he was only forced into siding with the higher floors. But 7F doesn't answer and just apologizes, and since he did help the lower floors win the battle, they decide to let him go. He even wipes his eyes, making 3F think he regrets what he did to them. They leave the other higher floors tied in their rooms but keep the doors open. Still, they feed them food and help the other higher floors with their waste. Everyone is amazed by 8F's luxurious room. She literally has everything, and it feels like a hotel room, so they spend most of their time there, exploring her room, bathing, eating, and relaxing. 8F has already collected 21.9 billion won, making the lower floors jealous, and they consider finishing up all her money. But 2F stops them, saying she must need the money just like they need it. But when 5F suggests buying a soju recipe, 2F asks for permission to use a tiny amount of her money. 8F says she doesn't care but begs them to let her go, which they ignore. Then they also spend millions on equipment and brew soju, and they happily taste it. 2F even offers a glass to 7F as a peace offering. They enjoy themselves, but 2F later suggests ending the game. She is willing to give from her earnings to help 1F reach 1 billion and says they need to remember all the torture they went through when the higher floors were ruling. They all miss living in the outside world. Everyone is sad about leaving, but they silently agree. On the final day, they eat as much as they want, bathe, wash their clothes, and prepare to go. On the final night, with 8 hours left, the amount collected by 8F is 25.6 billion won, 7F is 16.3 billion won, 6F is 10 billion won, 5F is 6.2 billion won, 4F is 3.8 billion won, 3F is 2.3 billion won, 2F is 1.5 billion won, and 1F is 766 million won. But the next morning, the timer suddenly extends by 45 hours. 2F is furious, wondering who entertained the audience. It turns out it's because someone pulled out 6F's toenails and pulled 4F's tooth, which is why the timer increased. But 4F and 6F's eyes were closed at that time, and they didn't know who did it, and everyone else also didn't know who did it. Frustrated, 2F starts to suspect all the lower floors, hinting there must be someone who betrayed them because they don't want the show to end. To end the show, 2F locks the lower floors inside their rooms except for 5F, who is tasked to check on the tied-up higher floors. The higher floors beg to be released and try to influence her. 4F even cries out in pain because her tooth was pulled out, and guilt begins to weigh on 5F. 5F starts hallucinating that 2F is freeing 4F and 8F. Excited, she tells 6F that he will be freed soon. 6F knows that 5F is only hallucinating, so he starts manipulating her by pretending that 2F plans to kill him and begs 5F to release him. Then 5F dreams that everyone has won, healed, and is about to leave happily, but it quickly shifts to the brutal reality of higher floors beating lower floors and 7F. It turns out 5F unties 6F, who immediately frees 8F and 4F. Together, they attack lower floors and 7F and tie them up. Even though 5F helps them, 6F still ties 5F and, in a twisted way of showing gratitude, forcefully kisses her, which disgusts her. 6F then orders a gun and begins a deadly game of Russian roulette to figure out who pulled out his toenails. He shoots 7F, but before turning to 1F, 3F suggests that 6F can buy the CCTV footage of yesterday instead. 8F spends 100 million won to buy the footage and is thrilled when it reveals 1F using chloroform on 6F. The video shows 1F pulling out 6F's toenails and even urinating on his face. At the same time, the lower floors argue, and finally 1F admits he did that. Horrified, 6F rushes to kill 1F, but 8F tases him, causing him to fall and break his back. 8F insists he was too reckless and that she doesn't want the game to end yet because she is having fun. 8F unties 5F because she's a nurse, so she is tasked to take care of others but keeps the others restrained in their rooms. Curious for more, she buys CCTV from all the rooms every day to watch them 24/7 and becomes aroused by their suffering. Realizing the audience is getting bored, she decides to torture the tied-up lower floors and 7F with sleep deprivation. 5F, who is not in her right mind, and 4F tie all the lower floors and 7F to the chair inside their own rooms, put their heads inside one bowl that's filled with water, and clip their eyes open so if they accidentally fall asleep, they will die, and 8F also shows disturbing videos inside their rooms, so this will torture them mentally and physically. But 4F and 5F feed them and take care of their waste every day. The more 8F watches their pain, the more excited she gets, even starting to paint. When satisfied with her painting, 8F rewards herself by buying a dog. 3F begins hallucinating, imagining the entire show is in his head and seeing the participants dancing around him and that only he is being tortured. Meanwhile, 1F tries to make 4F take his side. He apologizes for pulling out her tooth, and she forgives him and admits she would also do anything for money. Seizing on this, he asks if she wants to change to the 8th floor, though she doubts it's possible. In a flashback, it's revealed when 1F arrives in his clown costume, heading to his small room with just a scoreboard and noticing that he only earns 10,001 in a minute. Then he asks the intercom if he can switch rooms, and he learns it is possible, but for 1,000,000,001. That is why he wants to collect 1,000,000,001 first so he can change rooms later. 1F decides to let 4F switch the room instead, so 4F secretly plans a coup with the lower floors. 4F explains her idea to 2F, 3F, and 7F about switching rooms with 8F. 4F plans to release all the lower floors so they can help take down 8F, and they all agree by flaring their nostrils 3 times. 3F doubts the need for sneaking around, saying he doesn't think 8F would really pull the trigger and that they outnumber her. But 4F insists that 8F is dangerous since she loves shooting, once nearly shot her, and even dreams of killing everyone to end the show. 8F has a strict daily routine. She hardly sleeps because she spends nights watching the CCTVs, golfs during the day, and only lets go of the gun when she bathes. And the only time she's not watching CCTV is when she's golfing, but 4F can't release them because she needs to be her caddy. So 3F suggests 4F ask for 5F's help since only 5F is free to move around. But 4F says it's quite impossible because now 5F is not mentally stable and is always hallucinating and talking alone. But 3F convinces her to give it a shot. Then later 4F finds 5F and convinces her with an exaggerated story about how the lower floors are close to death because of 8F's torture. Feeling guilty, 5F agrees to help free the others, but under one condition: they keep it secret for now. The plan almost fails on the day of action since 8F doesn't feel like golfing and just wants to rest and stay in her room watching CCTVs. 4F convinces her really hard, and she finally agrees to go golfing. The action starts with 5F freeing 1F, then 2F, but when she moves to the 3rd floor, 8F's dog notices and barks. 4F distracts 8F, while 5F frees 3F, but because he sits for too long, his limbs stiffen, and he refuses to go because he's too sleepy, which slows them down. 8F sees a glimpse of someone, but 4F brushes it off, saying it's just her feeling. But 8F's dog goes wild and suddenly runs toward the stairs, and 8F and 4F follow the dog and start climbing the stairs. So 5F and 3F hide inside 6F's room. 6F starts screaming and making noises, which 8F hears, so she rushes into his room and sees them. 8F wants to shoot them, but then 4F knocks her unconscious with a golf club, and 4F releases 7F. Meanwhile, it's revealed 5F's condition is to take revenge on 6F by castrating him after what he did to her earlier. The story then reveals the participants' past lives. 8F is a washed-up performance artist humiliated when someone throws coins at her during a show. 7F is a scriptwriter whose realistic stories are rejected for being boring. 6F is a disgraced baseball player caught in illegal gambling, later working as a car salesman but still stuck in his old habits until he beats up his manager. 5F is wealthy and married to a doctor, but after suffering disrespect and infidelity from her husband, she has an affair with a man who scams her of all her money and her husband's money, leaving them broke. 4F works as a valet and is mocked by her rich former classmates for failing to achieve her dream of being a K-pop idol. 2F works in construction and offers to pay hospital bills when a coworker is injured, even though she has no money. 1F is a clown with a sick daughter. When he cannot afford her surgery, the hospital sends her away. He then signs a life insurance policy and tries to end his life on the street, but the car he chooses to jump in front of turns out to be the limo for the 8 show. All the players have miserable lives outside the show. Once 8F is tied up, 1F decides to let 4F switch rooms, but 1F decides to pay for it to repay 4F's kindness. But the plot twist is that 1 billion won is not for the actual room switch but only for the instructions on how to change the rooms, which costs 1 billion won, leaving him with only 800 million won. Real room prices are far higher, with the first floor costing 10 billion and 8F's at 340 billion. They are all devastated by how cruel and unfair the show is. 2F offers to share her winnings with 1F to make him get his 1 billion won back, but she wants to end the show immediately. The others agree, but before they can go to the square intercom, 1F suddenly pulls a gun on them. He wants to raise his prize money and forces them to tie each other while 8F laughs, having fun watching them. Later, he performs on a tightrope to extend the timer while everyone watches him. He jumps toward the ceiling, each leap taking him higher until he finally grabs the ceiling projector, but it falls and bursts into flames. He slips from the rope and crashes into the fire. The others escape their ropes and try to put out the flames. But 1F is badly burned, and 3F calls, asking to end the show while 2F knocks on the locked door. But 8F enjoys it, then the timer suddenly jumps to 1440 hours, which is 60 more days. 7F breaks down, demanding answers from the showrunners. 3F comes up with an idea and starts shooting the CCTVs. 2F helps, and they destroy every single camera in the square, including the one in the chute. With no way to broadcast the show, the timer resets to 0. The doors open, but it is too late for 1F. He apologizes to everyone and to his daughter, saying he shouldn't be greedy, and everyone cries watching as 1F dies. Since he dies after the game ends, the survivors are declared winners. 8F tears up, saying it feels like the perfect ending. After the game, 3F isolates himself at home, convinced it was all in his head and just a dream, and that it wasn't real, until he sees the prize money in his bank account. Even after half was deducted for destroying the cameras, he still has over 1 billion won. He also realizes the game lasted for 2.5 months and was never aired publicly. He decides to hold a funeral for 1F and advertises it publicly, which only 2F, 4F, and 5F attend. 3F finds 1F's wife through a circus search and learns that 7F gave her some of his winnings, which is 1 billion won, claiming to his wife that 1F was working overseas, so even 1F's family doesn't know he's dead. 6F doesn't come but sends a wreath to show respect to 1F. They also see news that 8F destroyed an art gallery and was forced to pay damages with all her winning money, which left her broke and now in prison. After the funeral, everyone goes their separate ways without knowing everyone's real name and background. In the mid-credit scene, 7F gives a script of The 8 Show that he was in to a network executive. The exec asks why the top floors aren't included in the ending, and 7F explains that audiences wouldn't want them to succeed. He asks if 7F actually lived through all this, but 7F lies and says it is fiction, though he looks shaken. The exec loves the script anyway and even suggests a sequel. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Craving K-dramas or K-movies? Get your bite-sized fill at RecapDumpling.